Welcome to A Healthier, Happier You, the people working to make it happen. I'm Evan J. Chalfin from Luxhammer, where we help the brands to help you live healthier. Today, I'm joined by Laura Owen, founder and CEO of Healthy ID, who's shifting employee healthcare by making specialty medications affordable while empowering total health transformation. Laura, welcome.
Thank you very much, Evan. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, what inspired you to create Healthy ID's prescription savings program?
Great question. So, we all know that health costs are rising, and for employers, that means insurance costs are rising. Large companies have pretty much moved to having these self funded health plans to manage those health costs. But also, about half of mid sized companies today have moved to these self funded plans. And the self funded plan kind of usually consists of an insurance component for the catastrophic health costs, the pharmacy benefit, which is the medications, the TPA, the third party administrator who manages everything. The employer takes on the expense and the risk of routine costs, doctor's visits, the cost of the pharmaceuticals, and things like x-rays. So we recognize something that a lot of employers did not, and that is that one of the growing expenses that we think is kind of gotten to be outrageous is the cost of the prescription medications. And we stepped in and we created a path for employers that can save them up to 60% on the specialty medications. And here's another tidbit for your audience. Roughly 5% of employees drive 80% of the healthcare costs. So if we can help those employees, because those are where the big expensive medications like Stelara, Skyrizi, et cetera, those hugely expensive medications are, we can step in and help the employer save on those prescription medications dramatically.
And how do you go about doing that?
We don't work with the pharmacy benefit manager directly. We work directly with the wholesalers. So we can provide international pricing on the exact same branded medications. And that's where the savings comes in. Right now, a lot of these pharmacy benefit managers are making a lot of money on these medications to the extent that we frankly don't think it's reasonable. So we take a very small margin and look at high volume to achieve our business. It's almost a personal mission for me because when I see that employees are having to choose between paying their rent or paying their copay and their deductible, that's not a reasonable expense for them to have to, a decision for them to make. So that's the reason behind the business, the why.
Yeah, that's great. So, how does your approach to employee healthcare differ from traditional benefits programs?
So with a traditional benefit plan, the employer pays a lot more, right? So here's an example. Two drugs that you hear about every night on the news are like Stelara and Skyrizi, right? Those are two that on average are about $25,000 a month each per month. That's outrageous. And if you're an employee and you're having to absorb a large copay or you have a large deductible, that's a huge expense where the employee ends up deciding, am I going to take my medication this month or am I going to pay my rent? Or they have perhaps a child on a very expensive medication. Making that choice is not, in my opinion, a fair choice. So that's the reason for our offer. We are very excited about the fact that it helps employers in a big, big way. And to give you an example, a mid-sized employer with 500 employees will save on average about $1 million a year, goes right to their bottom line in savings. So a lot of employers are not even aware of, for example, the fact that these specialty medications are increasing at a cost of 14% per year. That's crazy, right? They're already outrageously expensive. So the other side of it is we think it's not enough. Our first goal is let's get employees compliant on their meds. Because if they're not taking their meds because of very high expense, then guess what? They have increased hospitalizations. So the first goal is to have employees become compliant with their medications. The second option, which we support with at no cost again to the employer, is we provide a 10-part video series for employees at no cost. And what this is, it's interviews with 10 subject matter experts on the topics that will prevent or even reverse most chronic illnesses. And so we provide that at no cost to the employer. And there, the goal is let's get people off the medications or hopefully never on them. That's an important part of the program. And in addition to that, we're building an AI health coach, which is literally a voice-led discussion that you can have with a health coach who, first of all, helps you establish what is your why? Like, why is this important to you to make these changes in your health? And then once that's defined, then start working on goals with that individual and then coach them. And this is a voice activated system, coach them through those changes so they have sustainable change. And the final piece of it is I've written a book that's going to come out on or before July 1st on Amazon. And that book is all about these 10 steps that I mentioned. And it's life changing, right? So when we're young, we have these goals, these aspirations of things we want to do in our lives. And as we get older, if our health isn't great or we don't feel good or we don't have energy, guess what? Those dreams and those visions go away and we stop being productive citizens. And frankly, our joy is robbed. What we want to do is re inspire that in America and have people take back their dreams and take back their goals, take back their health. And so that's what the book is about. And again, those videos were interviews with 10 subject matter experts that are really the backbone of the book.
That's great. What types of employers see the best results with your program?
So an employer, a mid-sized employer or a large employer, either one. So usually it's employers with 300 employees or higher. Those are the ones who are using these self-funded health plans. And again, here's just the average. An employer with 500 employees, they're going to see $1 million in their bottom line. And it's a voluntary program. So the beauty of that is employers are not changing their broker. They're not changing their insurance plan. They're not changing their pharmacy benefit manager, and they're not changing their third party administrator. They change nothing. We just come into the program, make this available to employees that are taking those very expensive specialty medications and make this available to them. And here's another bonus. The medications are shipped directly to a consumer's home. So they don't even have to go to the pharmacy. And that's a big deal. It's actually the second largest reason for people not being compliant. Number one, they stop taking meds because of the cost, right? They're out of pocket cost. The number two reason is they don't want to go to the pharmacy to get it. They're busy. Life is busy. So we actually ship it directly to their home and remove that obstacle.
What do you see as your biggest challenge in growing adoption of the program?
It's really about educating employers because educating employers about the fact that their pharmacy expense is much higher than they realize and that can be controlled is shocking to most of them. Most employers also don't realize that it's actually a very small percentage of their workforce that's driving the cost of healthcare. So helping them to manage that, employees are not only healthier, guess what? They're happier employees. When they're healthy, they're happier and they're going to be a better workforce. So it's about educating the employer to make sure they understand they do have power over a lot of these exploding costs. And it's not that difficult to implement.
Yeah, so what would you tell someone just starting to address their company's prescription costs?
So the first thing we do is a cost analysis, and that's no cost to the employer. And what we do is we ask for in the last 12 months or so, what are the top 20 most expensive medications your employees are taking? And they know, they have that list. And we ask, tell us how many of those prescriptions per year. We pretty much know what those medications are going to be, right? They look very similar from one company to another, but we come back to that employer with an apples to apples comparison of the actual medications that their employees are taking, the number of scripts that they say that they've had in the last 12 months, and we show them what that cost would be with us. And that's where we know that the savings for just 500 employees is about $1 million a year.
How are you navigating relationships with PBMs and insurance providers?
Well, actually, the insurance providers, they like it, right? It just makes their program that much more solidified. If we can help employees, A, be compliant with their medications, right? They're going to have lower hospitalizations, but also help employees get off the medications by learning to make some diet and lifestyle changes, behavior modification. That's very helpful as well. So the insurance companies love us. The PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers, we work with them. So we work with them on things like deductibles and copays and all of that. It's not a negative relationship. It's just that we play a different role. So our role is to deliver the greatest value to the employer and the employee. And we do that by partnering with the partners that they have chosen, We don't change anybody in the mix. We just come alongside of them and complement what they're doing.
That's great. What would you say makes it difficult to stand out in the employee benefits space?
It's a matter of education because most employers don't even realize that there's a problem, right? If they don't realize there's a problem, they just think, oh, we change our program once a year and we do that through an RFP, and they just think everything is just the way it is because it's the way it is. So they don't even know what's possible. So that's the biggest hurdle we have to overcome. But also the fact that we offer this wellness program at no cost is pretty incredible because companies pay a lot of money for wellness programs. One that I like to make fun of a little bit is there are a lot of smoking cessation programs that employers pay a lot of money for. And most of them are online. And the employee is probably smoking when they're watching the videos. Just saying. So it's really not a very effective program. And so what we're looking to do right now is all done with video. But where we're going with it, as I mentioned, is this AI health coach is going to become a huge game changer. It has application even beyond what we're doing in helping people to make sustainable changes to their diet and lifestyle.
Absolutely. What are your main growth targets for this year?
Well, we are focusing nationwide, right? So not just in a small regional area. Obviously targeting employers of larger sizes. So not just the mid-size employers, 500 and up or 300 and up, but really many, many thousands of employees. So that's for us a growth step and one that I think we'll achieve this year.
That's great. And are you looking to serve new types of employers or health conditions?
Well, we serve all health conditions. We have 2,500 medications in our formulary. We have just about everything. We don't do generics. We don't do antibiotics. We don't do, things like that. We're really addressing the expensive medications. Again, this is where roughly 80 to 90% of prescription drug costs for the employer are these specialty medications. So the routine antibiotics and things like that, they can handle that just fine. But what they're not aware of is how much they could save on those prescription, again, up to 60%, depending on what the mix is of specialty medications for their team. But the book that I mentioned, I'm really excited about it. We're not pre-selling it, but if you would like your folks to know about it, I'm happy to make an offer and try to think. If they go to our website, I'll say this. If people go to our website, healthyid.com, and it's with a Y, healthyid.com, they will see inspiration is the tab on the top. They can access these videos. They can see the videos at no cost. They just have to enter their email address and they'll see the emails. The AI health coach is not available yet. That will only be available to employers. So that will give them kind of a little bit of a sense of our message and how we address this topic. We're also redoing some of those videos. We're in the process of working in a local studio to record some new videos. But the book is a game changer because the book is something everyone can get. And I think if someone wants to send us an email through our website, we'll create a list of everyone and let you know when the book is released. It will be released on Amazon, and I think it's probably going to be released in early to mid-June. So July 1st is the absolute latest. But if they want to come through the website and send a message asking to be put on our waiting list for the book, I'd be happy to send out a message to let them know when it's available.
And yeah, absolutely. That'd be fantastic. And how are you currently acquiring most of your employer partnerships?
It's really just word of mouth. A lot of insurance consultants who know about what we're doing, they're excited about it. So they tell people about it. That's a game changer, right? Because when they believe in you, that's who you want to have talking about what you're doing. So it's really primarily word of mouth at this point. I think when the book comes out, obviously that's going to open some doors as well. There is a book listed on my website that came out last year. That book is similar, but not as rich. It was kind of a funny story. So when the book first was to come out last year, it was called Intentional Health. And I sent the manuscript to our chief medical officer. He was a surgeon at Mayo Clinic his whole career. So he's amazing credentials. And he called me and he said, well, Laura, the book is outstanding. Everything in this is everything is medically accurate, but it's boring and nobody will read it. It's like, that wasn't what I wanted to hear or thought I would hear. And he said, I want you to rewrite it. but take all the clinical references, put them in the back of the book, and make the book more readable. Right now, it's just boring. That was a big undertaking. It was almost like rewriting the whole book, really. And it cut the book's size way down, and it made it a lot more fun to read and much more actionable. Then he said the title. Let's talk about the title. People are going to see this. If they see that first book on the website, they're going to see this. So originally it was called Intentional Health. And Dr. Larson said, boring. Need a new title. And I asked, what do you think it should be, Smarty Pants? What would you name it? So he said, I think you should call it 10 Steps to Your Best Sex. And I said, well, the book has nothing to do with sex. And he says, well, it actually does, because there's a direct correlation between health and sex. So what we came to agree to was that I would call the book 10 Steps to Your Best Sex, parentheses, and Health. And the subtitle is all about chronic inflammation. And he wrote the foreword of the book. And in his foreword, he explains that correlation. But I just want to forewarn people, the book has nothing to do with sex. My brother asked where the pictures were. There were no pictures. He was so disappointed. The book is not about sex. So the new book will come out before July 1st. And it's very similar to the first book, but way better, because it has a lot more actionable information. So much has changed in 1 year, even in 1 year, of things we know about health, studies that have come out. I think people will really enjoy this book. And it's my hope that it helps a lot of people, inspires a lot of people to take back their dreams, take back their health. I look at what's happening in the country, and we have a nation where half of us are either diabetic or pre-diabetic. Half. 1 out of 3 Americans is pre-diabetic, and 90% of those folks don't even know it. And that's really scary, because diabetes is directly linked to heart disease, liver disease, kidney disease. And so the earlier we can catch this, it's completely reversible with changes in diet and lifestyle. And I'm not talking about living on kale and becoming a gym rat. I like ice cream as much as the next person, but it's about just having sustainable habits and enjoy birthday cake when birthday cake is there. It's just we don't eat birthday cake every day. And I'll share with you that one of the things that inspired me with Healthy ID was I was reading blog posts about various chronic illnesses. I came across a Facebook page that was for people who had just recently been diagnosed as type 2 diabetic. And there was a post by a 30-year-old woman who had just been diagnosed type 2 diabetes, who was suicidal because she had seen her mother, who was type 2 diabetes, who lost her vision, she lost her limbs, and she lost her life. And she thought that was her journey. That was going to be her path. And oh my gosh, that was so gripping. And I responded to her that diagnosis and that doctor, he sent her home with insulin and said, good luck. He didn't tell her this was completely reversible in as little as 30 days. 30 days. So I said to her, this diagnosis might be the greatest gift you've ever gotten in your life, because it's something you can change. And a great way to honor your mother's memory is to create a new life for yourself. That's what your mom would want. And I just shared some things with her about changes in diet and lifestyle. What I regret is I didn't stay in touch with her. I was just reading through blogs, and I was crying. She was crying. We're both like working through tears on keyboards, trying to, from the heart, share that this was something she could change. She was committed to making that change. Our doctors today, God bless them, medical schools are filled with textbooks written by Big Pharma. Docs go through that. None of it is about nutrition, right? They don't learn about root cause. They're trained to diagnose and prescribe, in fairness to them. That's how they're trained. And they get out of medical school, and who visits them every day? Big Pharma reps. The solution to everything is another pill. So as a result, our society is so grossly over-medicated, and we have pills upon pills. Many times, doctors don't even know what the next doctor has prescribed. We might forget when we fill out those forms to remember all the medications that we're taking, because many people are taking many medications every day. So really, we have to change that. As a culture, I kind of call it like a hamster wheel. If you've ever seen a hamster wheel, all they do is run all day on that wheel and they're getting nowhere, right? And as a society, we have a food system that is so fraught with poison. There's nothing healthy in most of what we eat, right? It's so much garbage. In Santa Monica, where you are, at least you have great produce around you, right? You have really great produce. But in much of the country, that's not the case. And so we eat a lot of ultra processed foods. We're eating fast food, which is not only pure garbage, it's pure poison, frankly. We're not moving enough. We're stressed out of our minds. We're not sleeping well. Our hormones are all out of whack. Our lives are filled with environmental poisons and toxic relationships, toxic news, toxic everything. And I could go on and on. But the point is that these are the 10 steps, right? These are the 10 steps in the book that we talk about, is that these are all things that we have control over, many of these things. And by taking back that control, it allows us to take back control of our health. And by doing that, we also take back our dreams. Because when we have the energy and we feel good about ourselves and our lives, we can be much more productive in our lives and much happier people. So that's my end game, is I want to help people achieve that and re-embrace that. And that's the purpose of the book. That's the purpose of Healthy ID. That's my life mission at this point, is to help people reignite that passion in their lives of what matters to them.
And that's a great mission. What would you say are the trends in healthcare that excite you the most?
Well, without question, I mean, we can't ignore what Secretary Kennedy is doing. There's no disputing that our food system is a mess, right? Big pharma is out of control. And the fact that drug companies, the FDA was sitting on the boards of drug companies, hello, that's a conflict of interest. That just went away, right? So the fact that the answer to everything is a pill is not good for America. The fact that so much of our food system is so poisoned with additives and chemicals, that has to change. And I think this administration is keenly, regardless of where you fall in the political aisle, if we just look at what is happening in healthcare in our country, our health system is a hot mess. The cost of healthcare is a mess. The cost of medications is out of control. We're taking too many medications. All of the food dyes. They just announced, I think this morning, that as of the end of 2026, all of the major food dyes, artificial food colorings, have to be gone. Gone. Our children are consuming these foods every day in their schools and at home. And so from a very early age, kids are being poisoned with this stuff. And the consumption of things like soda. The biggest use of money in the food stamp program is soda, right? So many states are beginning to address that. Here in Kansas, that was just outlawed. I think we're going to see a number of changes like that. And, I see that as kind of a top down approach to health. And I'm hoping that my book and others who are working on similar initiatives to empower people with their health, that's kind of the grassroots approach, that I think combining those two, we're going to see massive changes in health in our country. And we need to, right? So I often say that I've lost 100 pounds in the last 10 years, 10 pounds a year, right? That's my deal. Like I said, I like ice cream as much as the next person. And so my weight will do this. Like around the holidays, it always goes up and then it goes back down. And that's the story of my life. So I'm not immune to this. But as a nation, this is affecting us from a national security base, right? So we've been lowering our standards for entering the military gradually for several years. And that is not good for our nation's strength, right? So I look at 77% of Americans are overweight or clinically obese. Percent. That's crazy, right? 42% are clinically obese. And the National Institute of Health says that number will be 50% in 5 years. And when you look at the correlation of obesity to chronic illness, it's like this. So it's not the only reason for chronic illness, but it's a major contributing factor, especially with the fact that this is growing so rapidly. So we have to address this. It needs to be done with carrots and sticks, in my opinion, from a policy perspective. But it also needs to be done with grace because, again, we didn't get here overnight. Culturally, our nation were built on McDonald's, right? Isn't that just become kind of the American standard for breakfast? A drive through at McDonald's with the kids? It's like the norm. Around the world, people look at McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken and all of that as kind of the American way. And many of them are adopting this, and we're seeing their health stats decline as a result. So we've got to move away from that. And we've got to help people understand that there is a way back. This doesn't happen overnight. And a lot of the food that I eat every day today isn't what I ate maybe 10 years ago. It's been gradual. Things that I would not have wanted to eat 10 years ago are normal for me now, and I love them because your food taste changes as you change. My way of managing stress is very different. Managing my sleep, change of life stuff that happens to men and women, and hormonal balance and how that plays into our health is important to look at. So all of those things are like kind of like gears in a watch. They all work together. And any one of those gears gets thrown off course a little bit, everything gets messed up. Everything. By helping people understand that big picture, and it's not complicated, it's just like an awareness thing, like, aha, okay, and I can change that. That's the power of it, is to say to people, you have the power to choose. Choose well. That's the message of the book.
That's great. And so, how do you envision the future of employer-sponsored healthcare changing?
One of the fastest growing areas in health insurance is these self-funded health plans. Large companies, almost all of them, probably 99%, I think that's the number, right now have self-funded health plans because traditional health insurance has just become so prohibitively expensive. Half of mid-sized companies have these self-funded health plans, but that's a very fast-growing number. The percentage today is 50%. I would be surprised if in the next few years that number isn't 75%. So a lot, because it's an awareness thing. Insurance brokers don't make as much money selling self-funded health plans as they do on selling traditional health insurance. So they really don't push it. But when employers are educated about the savings, they go with employer self-funded plans. We don't get involved in that, right? That's what insurance brokers and consultants do. Our role is to educate the employer about their savings on the prescription medications. And once their eyes are open to how much they're spending, because again, they don't know, they turn it over to the consultants. They don't realize those specialty meds are making up 80 to 90% of their prescription costs, and that those are going up 14% per year. It's eating their lunch, and they can do something about it. So that's an education process. That's where it's changing rapidly, as employers are learning that they can save a lot of money by moving to these types of plans, and ultimately by using a program like ours, they can save a lot of money on those specialty medications.
That's fantastic. And that's it for today's episode of Healthier, Happier You, the people working to make it happen. Huge thank you to Laura Owen for sharing her insights and the amazing work Healthy ID is doing to help people live healthier, happier lives. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who could benefit. If you're a brand or business making an impact in health, wellness, or personal care, we'd love to help you grow. Connect with me at luxhammer.com. Thanks for listening. Until next time, stay healthy, stay happy, and keep making a difference.